Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner, who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael World B. Freer, who is a senior writer at StatFactor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 132, the Karl Anthony-Towns episode, as Cat has absolutely been balling this year with the New York Knicks. I'm sure we'll have more on him later. But first, before we get things rolling, just a quick reminder, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football and NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. And tonight, fellas, I thought we'd have some fun playing a quick game of who's hot and who is not. So let's go ahead and get things started with hot teams out east. And stop me, because this is definitely the first time we're mentioning it on this show. The Milwaukee Bucks are hot. They are winners of their last 4 games, and all of a sudden find themselves 7-3 in their last 10. So, Bruce, I'll start with you. This is a pleasant surprise to be talking so positively about the Bucks, right?
Hey, listen, they've won 4 straight games, all of them at home. If they could play 82 at the five-star forum, man, they would be so good. But no, it's good. It's good to see them getting their act together. I mean, I know we're going to talk a little about Giannis, or I am a little later on. But I know you guys have lots to say, but I want to talk about Gary Trent Jr. Okay, He's a guy that we bashed pretty good in the first couple of weeks of the season because here they brought him over and he was supposed to give him some outside shooting, blah, 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 and he sucked. Well, in the last 4 games, he's shooting 65% from beyond the arc, okay? That's crazy. That's, and that has been, I think, a kind of under the radar thing that's really helped them, their offense tip much better.
Yeah, and he's been staying under the radar, coming out after games, getting extra shots up when the shots aren't falling for him in that game. So he's really taking this opportunity and running with it as far as knowing what's at stake, what could actually be in his future benefit of knocking down these open jump shots that Damian Lillard and Giannis are providing for him. So glad to see that he has continued to stick with it and is starting to see some results through his hard work. World B, what's your take on Milwaukee's success here as of late?
I think their world got a whole lot better when their defense got a whole lot better. I mean, in the month of November, they're only giving up about 111 points per 100 possessions. And during this last 7 games, this really good stretch, it's been even less than that, 108 points per 100 possessions. So they've been solid on the defensive end, the way we've known them to be. I would pump the brakes on, saying they're back or whatever, because if you look at the teams they've beaten this season, we're talking the 76ers without MD to Paul George, Utah, Toronto, Detroit, the Rockets, which is legit, Chicago, Indiana, and Charlotte, who, by the way, beat them a few nights earlier, and they almost blew a 20-point lead to the Hornets on top of that. So they're playing better. You don't apologize for wins. Everybody's got to play these teams. But I want to see them do it against some of the better ones first.
Russ finally has something to cheer about. And here you are crapping all over this parade.
Hey.
I'm a salty guy tonight.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out tomorrow night as the Bucks have hit the road. On Tuesday, they play in Miami against the Heat. The Heat have been playing some better ball here as of late, and it's a road game in Miami of all places. So that one should be interesting to see if the Bucks can keep their hot streak going. Next up, we've got the San Antonio Spurs. We'll get to them. The Orlando Magic, they are winners of their last 2 games. But more importantly, as World B, I'm sure, would like to emphasize here, they are 8-2 in their last 10, which is a huge thing for this team because they've lost their star in Paolo Banchero earlier this season, and it seems like they've gotten their act together, right, World?
Yeah, they're doing it the way we saw them do it last season on the defensive end. They're the second best team defensively in November, only allowing 105 points per 100 possessions. That's ridiculous. Only the Rockets, who are playing insane ball on the defensive end, have been better. During the last 9 games when they're 8-1, they've almost held opponents to a point per possession. It's 101.5 defensive efficiency. That's ridiculously great. I know efficiency is down this season in the NBA on average, but that's still a ridiculously low number here. Franz Wagner is looking solid. He had the big game winner against the Lakers. That's kind of an eye-opener for this team this season. So last season he was the worst 3-point shooter in the league, under 30% by amount of attempts. He was the worst. This season, much better, 36%. It's not tremendous, but it's absolutely much better than he has been.
It seems like it's definitely ticking upward there. Now, Bruce, before I get to you, quick question, follow up here for World B. Tonight's your kind of small market Super Bowl, as the Hornets and Magic are actually duking it out right now. So who would you like to win this one? I'm just generally curious.
Go ahead.
Oh, who are you asking?
I was asking World B. This is like his small market Super Bowl. It's got the Magic and Hornets. So, would you sacrifice a Magic win for some Hornet success?
Games like this, I just want to see them both play pretty well and see what happens at the end. I think it would be – the Hornets haven't been bad lately, and we're going to talk about LaMelo down the road there. But it's a good matchup for both teams, and let's see. They're both not healthy anymore, and the Hornets are in a ridiculously bad injury shape. But, I'm looking forward to this, a good game. I just don't want to see a clunker.
All right.
It is a good game, this Monday night game, because – right now, there's about 6 minutes left, and Orlando's up by 8. But they were trailing most of the game. They in the fourth quarter, halfway through, they've outscored Charlotte 20-8. So to go from being 4 down to 8 up, and it looks like the momentum's in their favor. If they keep it up, they'll probably finish it off. But hey, LaMelo Ball may be playing in a small market, but he's not putting up small numbers. Tonight, he's jacked up 24 field goal attempts, made 13. And he's got 32 points, so he's doing well.
He certainly is. And Bruce, do you have any thoughts here on the Magic's success here in the last 10 games?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're on pace to win 50 games. As much as we've sort of said, they've struggled, whatever. I mean, they're what? They're 11. What are they? They're 11-7. Okay, so that puts them on pace for about 55 or 54 wins. Maybe 50. So I mean, that's good. And considering Banchero has only played 5 games. All right.
Yeah, he's their best player.
Franz Wagner's been tremendous. I mean, he's a borderline, if not an actual all-star.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Wendell Carter in the middle is out for them too. So I mean, that was their big guy in the middle. So they're not a team that can. They're a deep team, but they're starting to lose guys, and they're starting to really reach into the back. But they're still winning. So. Kudos to them.
Great to see that from a young team that's continuing to kind of rise up the Eastern Conference standings there. Now, switching gears here to hot teams out west. Let's start with the LA Clippers. Not so hot here as of Monday night in Boston. But before tonight's game in Boston, they have been winners of their last 5 games and are 7-3 in their last 10. So, Bruce, I know you watched a little bit of this one here before we started taping tonight's show. What's your thoughts on the Clippers? I mean, this is a team that we all kind of wrote off at the beginning of the season.
I mean, I had them winning 36 games this year. I mean, I think it looks pretty good that they're going to exceed that and, fairly easily. I mean, look, they played Philadelphia on Sunday night and they beat the crap out of them on the road. Now on Monday night, they go into Boston and they're getting the crap beaten out of them. Yeah. In the first half, they gave up 78 points. I mean, Boston was just raining down threes. And here's a number for World B freer that you'll appreciate. Boston scored more points tonight, Monday night, in the second quarter, 51, than the Clippers scored in the first half, 49.
Dang. Wow. World B, your thoughts on the Clips?
Well, first of all, you're not winning any games when a situation like that happens for your opponent. So, I thought they'd be even worse than Bruce predicted win-wise. My expectations were extremely low. I thought if they were going to do anything, they had to do it at the defensive end. And Ty Lue's got them playing defense as well as anybody in the league right now. They're, allowing during this win streak before entering Monday, they were holding opponents under a point per possession. That's ridiculous. Even in a down year offensively for this league, that's really ridiculous. Opponents shooting just 27%. Now, is that LA playing really great defense, or that's just lousy shooting on the opponent's part? Either way, that's a ridiculously low number. They already have 2 wins over the Warriors. They're the only team in the league that's beaten one of the top 5 teams in the league twice. They have 2 of the Warriors' 4 losses have come against the Clippers, and they're doing it while the star of the team, James Harden, is having a terrible shooting season. I mean, he's under 33% on threes. He's barely shooting. He's over 40%, 42% on twos. He's by percentage the worst shooter in the league this season in effective field goal percentage, and they're winning games in spite of it. Very impressive by Ty Lue, who's one of my favorite coaches in the league. He can coach my team any day.
Yeah, no question. And the fact that Ivica Zubac has played a huge key to their success this year as well. He has been huge at the 5 position. Monster double-double guy so far this year. I think the biggest takeaway from their last 5 games in particular, or when their 5-game win streak that's probably going to end tonight in Boston, I think I can safely say, is the fact that their last 3 wins came without Norman Powell. Norman Powell kind of stepped into the spot of Paul George and has really shined, getting more opportunities to score the basketball, get some more shots up. He's done an exceptional job. He's been out the last 3 games. They still went ahead and continued their winning streak, and they're getting solid contributions from guys like Amir Coffey, Derek Jones Jr., who came over from Dallas. They've made some sneaky nice moves over the course of the past couple of years here to kind of set them up for some success, and seems like it's been helping them, especially with James Harden's struggles. Now, next up here, I kind of jumped the gun earlier with this team, and that is Wemby and the San Antonio Spurs. They are winners of their last 3 games, 6-4 in their last 10, and now are 9-8 on the season. So they are above 500 in the West. Bruce, what's your takeaway from this recent surge by the Spurs?
Well, I expected the Spurs to be a much better team this year. Of course, with Wemby's development, the addition of Chris Paul, kind of a steady floor general, Harrison Barnes, who I think has started every game for them. He has not missed a game. And, veteran, solid guy. And look, they've had, you got to tap the brakes on them a little bit with that 9-8 record, because they've had 11 home games and only 6 road games. Okay. But they are winning with solid defense, and we know defense travels well. So when they do have to play more road games, I mean, their defense will probably keep them in it. And they had a really great win over the weekend. They rallied from 17 down against Golden State, beat them, and eventually won by 10. So this is clearly a team headed in the right direction.
World B?
Yeah, I think Bruce mentioned Harrison Barnes. He has 3 20-point games this season, all come during this 3-game win streak. So he's really helping out. It's funny. This is a team. They had 3 different chances before this weekend to get over the 500 mark. They hadn't been over 500 since, I think, 3-2 at the beginning of last season, because they went 3-2 and then they lost. Remember, they lost about 18 in a row or something ridiculous like that.
It was a long streak.
And that was it for them for the season. And they played better at the end of last season. If you remember, once they got that terrible stretch out of the way, they beat some really tough teams down the stretch. So you saw the promise at the end of last season. Wemby played great at the end of the second half of the season. So this isn't, as Bruce mentioned, a big surprise. I was taking a wait-and-see approach, but with Chris Paul and Wemby their Spurs offense has been fantastic with the 2 of them on the court together. They really got in gear. I think it's about 120 points per 100 possessions with the 2 of them on the court together of late the last couple of weeks. But, they were 0-3 when they had with a chance to get over 500 before this weekend. They finally got that. I think that's kind of a building block for Wemby. I think that's a big deal to get that confidence in him and see the fruits of their labor, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to keep in mind here with this Spurs team is they lost their head coach, Greg Popovich, obviously to some health conditions earlier on. So Mitch Johnson's taken over. That had to be an adjustment period. You talk about a guy that's coached the team for what, Bruce, 2 decades? I mean, going from his voice to a new voice on the floor, at least managing it as the head coach for now. I mean, that probably took an adjustment period. And it seems like this veteran group, along with Wemby's development, is certainly taking a turn around the corner.
But see, that's what happens when you have a strong, like, organizational philosophy. I mean, the Spurs have, everyone talks about the Heat culture, which is a real thing. I believe in it. I think it's for real. The Spurs got that too, Other teams have had that too. Boston has that too, to a certain extent. So when a guy like Pop has to step aside and he puts his next in line in there, the next in line is pretty much just mimicking everything Pop would have done, because that's how he learned. And that's usually a good thing. Yeah,
great point there. Now, we're going to move on to our who's not, and that is the ice cold teams starting out east. And that really kind of goes for most of this conference, if we're being quite honest here. We only have 4 teams above 500. So my first question to you guys, and I'll start with you, is the top 4 in the East already set with Cleveland, Boston, Orlando, and New York?
It sure seems that way right now. I know we're just a month into the season. We're not even to Thanksgiving. It just really seems that way. This is a very weak – it's competitive, but it's a very weak conference this year, this season. Think about it. Real quick note, and I'll pass. I'll make it my point about how weak the East is. The Wizards have the NBA's worst record, 2-13. They've lost 11 in a row. They've been just embarrassing. And they came into Monday just 3.5 games out of a play-in spot. So that's what you need to know about where things. We didn't expect the Bucks to be where they were. We didn't expect Indiana to be where they were. So there are some surprises. They could pick up and maybe be a challenger to these teams, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, Bruce, what's your thoughts on that? Is this the top 4 in the East that's going to be locked in all year?
I think certainly the top 3. I'm, between Boston and the Cavs, 1 and 2, 2 and 1, and then the Knicks. Orlando, to me, is a little bit vulnerable, even though they played, because here's the thing. The guy that they brought in during the offseason that was going to provide leadership and, stability for that team, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, has been horrible, absolutely horrible. He's scoring 7 points a game. That's the fewest since his rookie year. He was counted on to be a leader, but you can't be a leader unless you're producing, because the guys won't listen to you, okay? And I think that's going to hurt him in that locker room unless he starts to step it up a little bit. And if he fades and Orlando fades, Milwaukee's going to be right there, to crack the top 4. I mean, look, here's the thing about the top 2 teams, Boston and Cleveland. The Cavaliers haven't shaken the Celtics yet, but they're 17-1, right? If they can go just 33 and 31 the rest of the way, that's basically 500 ball the rest of the way, they'll win 50 games. They're not going to finish worse than second, and they might finish first, depending on how things go. Injuries, you never know. The Knicks have yet to fire on all cylinders. Not worried about them. I feel like they're a group with collectively a pretty high hoop IQ. They have a good coach. They have kind of an identity. OG Anunoby's been great. I mean, he's been fantastic. Mikal Bridges is still looking to find his mojo. Cat has been a great addition. They'll be fine. It's after the top 3 that I think it could get, a little not as firm.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you there. I think the Knicks are a team to watch out for, maybe even surpassing Orlando, just given the health concerns there with Paolo Banchero and his injury. I think the Knicks, once they get Mitchell Robinson back, could be a real beast in the East, given kind of the versatility he could bring to that team. Precious Achiuwa, let's not forget the fact he's also out. So now, Karl Anthony-Towns is really like the only real 5-man that's playing quality minutes for this group. So I think once Bridges finds his stride and they get the health of their bigs back, look out for the New York Knicks. Now, we mentioned the Washington Wizards, Bruce. They are now 2-13 on the season, lost 11 in a row, as you pointed out. They did just get back well-respected veteran Malcolm Brogdon, who's returned to action, but it seems like it isn't helping them much. So where does this team go moving forward this season?
I'm going to save us a little time in this show and blow through this really quick. The Wizards completely suck, all right? They get blown out just about every night. Their minus 14.4 point differential indicates that. They're 26th in points scored. They're 29th in points allowed. It would be really easy of me to take a cheap shot and say, hey, when Jordan Poole's your best player, what do you expect? So, but I'd never do that.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there. World B, when you look at this team, they've got two of the top rookies in this year's class as far as performances so far, and Alex Sarr and also Karl Anthony-Towns, Bub Carrington, as he likes to go by. So what do you think of this group? Do you think they start making trades here soon, or will they wait until the deadline and see if some of the price tags get a little better?
I think they're going to wait it out. I don't if they're going to make any deals, they're going to take their lumps. I mean, that's just, they're playing a young group of guys. They got Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. By the way, when those two are on the court together, they're getting blown out by like 25 points per 100 possessions. So it's not like they're making a big difference. Now, who would want those guys? I don't know. So we'll wait and see how that works out. They haven't won since before Halloween. They beat the Hawks on October 30th. So we're almost going from Halloween to Thanksgiving without a Wizards victory. They're next to last in offensive efficiency. They're dead last in defensive efficiency. And here's a real quick number. Their most used lineup this year, the one that's played the most minutes, most five-player lineup, is getting outscored by 31 points per 100 possessions. As Bruce mentioned, they're getting blown out every night. They're taking their lumps. Now, that being said, Bruce knows this. They pushed the Celtics big time over the weekend, and Boston needed a big fourth quarter to pull that game out. It was a 3-point game midway through the fourth quarter, 4-point game about 4 minutes to go before Boston pulled it out, won by double digits like everybody does. But they're going to take their lumps. They're going to have some nights where they got it going on. But the team I saw play the Knicks a few games ago was really bad.
Why in the world did that team sign Jonas Valanciunas? I am still mystified by that signing. They got to move him if they can. He's making a lot of money, and someone can use him, but the Wizards can't.
They're holding him hostage right now.
I'll tell you this. I honestly think they didn't realize Alex Sarr could be. He's not. Alex Sarr's not. A outstanding, but he's not Wemby of last year. But I'll talk about him later on in our show. I don't think they realized he was going to. He started every game for them. Valanciunas is coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, and they've only played those two together like 25 minutes. It's been a disaster when they've both been on the court, by the way. So it's one or the other. And I just don't think they saw Alex Sarr developing to the point where he can be competitive right away on the court. He's got issues, but I think that's one of the reasons they got him in the beginning. I think I agree with you, Bruce. They would get rid of him tomorrow if they could. And maybe they will. Maybe
OKC would take a shot at him because they could use help up front usually, and they have assets out the wazoo. But, they may be against their philosophy. Who knows?
Yeah. All I know is World B pointed out that the Wizards haven't won since Halloween, and that is certainly our spooky.
No, they didn't get to
That's our spooky stat of the night there. All right, moving on to the West and ice cold teams in the Western Conference. We've got a couple candidates here that don't seem to fit the list, but here they are. And we're going to start out with the Phoenix Suns, who are on a current 5-game losing streak, 4-6 in their last 10, and have dropped it all the way down to 8th in the West. Bruce, what's your thoughts on this team? Obviously, Kevin Durant is set to return to play here this week, but is this a team that can survive without KD at times, or is it KD or bust for the Suns season?
No, they can't survive without him. No, they just can't. I mean, look, they were 8-1 when he got hurt, and then they've gone 1-6 without him.
Yeah.
What else you want to know? I mean, he's a two-way player. He's the clutchest guy in the world. He's still pretty much at the top of his game. He just needs to be healthy. And they're a top-heavy team. I mean, look, that's like a tripod there with him and the other two, guys. You take one leg out, and I mean, Devin Booker and Brad Beal aren't going to be able to carry that team because after those three, what's left? Yusuf Nurkic? I mean, come on.
Yikes. Yep. World B, what's your thoughts on Phoenix?
Well, it's funny. Bruce mentioned, they've been without KD for the last 7 games, 1-6, and they've actually been without Bradley Beal for the last 5. They're on a 5-game losing streak. So it's bad enough they're top heavy, but 2/3 of that big 3 are out of line. As you mentioned, Ross, they probably will be back on Tuesday. when they play the Lakers. So, that's good news for Phoenix. But it's really their defense, not their offense, has been the biggest issue. They're given since November 10th when KD went down, their defense is giving up 121 points per 100 possessions, and that's not even the worst defensive stat. They're giving up their opponent's field goal percentage effective field goal percentage is almost 60%. That's a ridiculously high number, 59.7. That's the worst in the league since KD went down. Now the positive is Russ's guy Tyus Jones has been doing what we know he can do. A lot of assists and not too many turnovers. 6.47 assist to turnover ratio. That'd be the highest rate, according to NBA.com. That'd be the highest assist to turnover ratio in league history. The three ahead of him right now, or be the fourth highest. The three ahead of him right now are all Jones's too. So he's doing what he normally does.
Yeah, and Tyus Jones has kind of tried his best to pick up the scoring load too with Kevin Durant and Brad Beal out. So he's had a tall task here as of late. I think the biggest thing for Phoenix is, of course, getting Kevin Durant back healthy. But somehow they got to keep him on the floor. I know he's old, and I know that the mileage is on his legs, but I'm with you, Bruce. I just had to ask the question. I agree. I don't think this team can survive without him. And out west, where the competition is pretty stiff, they've got to figure out a way to keep that man healthy if they're going to have a chance this year to try to get past the first round at the very least.
Before he got hurt, he was playing, I think, close to 39 minutes a game, which is like the most that he's played in like 10 years. So they're really going to have to take a look at his minutes. Look, you need him out there to win the game, but at the same time, if they could get that down by the 35 minutes a game and still win their share, that you just worry about a guy playing that many minutes at his age.
Yep. And next we're going to talk about another team having a ton of injury concerns, and that is the New Orleans Pelicans. They've lost 4 straight games. They're 1-9 in their last 10, if you can believe that. Currently 4-13 on the season. Good for dead last out west. Bruce, when you look at this team, just given Zion's injury history, and then just recently here, they've been playing games without even a starter or rotational player out there on the floor. Boy, has the mighty fallen for New Orleans this year.
Zion Williamson, it's like Groundhog Day with this guy. Every year, he misses a bunch of games. He's 6'6", 284 pounds of explosive leaping ability. But what goes up must come down. And as long as his weight is that high, he's going to continue to have these lower extremity injuries because of all the torque and wear and tear. He's like the anti-Jokic when it comes to this. Jokic jumps over a piece of paper, but, he does his thing. Zion has a bigger body than him and is just like landing hard. It's like he's got to drop. If he can't drop somewhere between 30 and 40 pounds, he is never going to live up to his potential because he won't play enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. I saw that there was some footage released of his new back tattoo that he was showcasing with the tattoo parlor, and he turned around and he showed his boiler a bit. And he's definitely got 15 to 20 pounds easily that he could maybe take off with some crunches, but he's going to have to stick to a strict diet there. World B, what's your thoughts on this Pelicans team? I feel like historically you've been a big fan of this team, but obviously this year I'm sure you have your concerns. Yeah,
I thought they'd be really solid with that lineup this year, but that lineup's all injured. I mean, think about this. This was what their expected lineup they projected before the season was going to be. Zion, CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, and Herb Jones. That was going to be basically their starting 5. Last Wednesday against the Cavaliers, they started Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Brandon Boston Jr., Javonte Green, Elfrid Payton, who they signed that day.
Yeah, that day.
And rookie Yves Missi. That's what you're stuck with when everybody is injured. I mean, they had 1 game out of DeJounte Murray. I don't know how many games out of Zion. 8. I mean, it's just been a disaster for this team. 19 players already have played at least 25 minutes this season for them. Last year, they were banged up, and they only had 16 players play at least 25 minutes. They have more players that have played 25 minutes this season, 1 month in, than all of last season. That's incredible. That was from NBA.com. That's an incredible number. It just speaks volumes to how banged up they are.
You got to feel for Willie Green. He's just had to patch things together. He's had 14 different players start at least one game. Think about that. They've only played 17 games. 14 different players have started a game for those guys.
That's incredible. Yeah, and one of those guys that you just mentioned signed last week, Alfred Payton. As of taping here Monday night, they did lose in Indiana against the Pacers, but Payton had 21 assists in that game. So quite an impressive feat there for an individual there. So well done there, Alfred. Next up, we've got the Minnesota Timberwolves as we continue on here with some surprising team names here. They've lost their last 2 games. They're 5-5 in their last 10 and currently sit outside the playoff picture out west. Bruce, can you believe it?
They've got to be one of the most disappointing teams in the league so far. I mean, look, 2 weeks ago, they lost back-to-back games against Portland. Okay.
Hey, take it easy.
Two losses in 2 nights to Portland. Granted, they were both on the road, but they're Portland and you're Minnesota, and it's not supposed to go like that. Their defense seems to have taken a major step back since last season when they were the best defensive team in the league. They've lost 5 of their last 7, but they actually had a real battle with Boston on Sunday. They were down 19 points in that game. They battled back, and they actually had a chance to win it in the last 10 seconds. They had the ball down too, but they couldn't get a shot off. So, look, you got to feel a little bit bad for, Chris Finch. He loses Karl Anthony-Towns 3 weeks before the start of the season, which means major adjustments with Julius Randle versus Karl Anthony-Towns. And, Randle's been good, but the other guy that came over in that trade, Donte Divincenzo, has not. And we're going to talk a little about him, I think, a bit later on. But, yeah, huge disappointment. And has been great, but one man, no matter how great, does not a team make.
Sure. And World B, you think the Timberwolves are kind of scratching their head on their decision to trade Karl Anthony-Towns right about now, or not just yet?
I wouldn't say just yet. We got to remember, we forget now, we're just a month into the season. We're not even to Thanksgiving, let alone Christmas and the turn of the year. So I'll take a wait-and-see approach. This is not a good stretch for them right now. No question about it. Their defense, as Bruce mentioned, is kind of not nearly where it was last season, but it really didn't have anywhere to go but down after such a dominating season last season.
True.
So the biggest thing for me, there is a huge gap in their wins and losses offensively. That when they're winning games, they are dominating offensively, about 120 points per 100 possessions. And when they lose, it's down like 107 points per 100 possessions. There's a wide gap between wins and losses for them offensively. And heaven forbid they get a bad night from Anthony Edwards, because on nights when he doesn't have 60% effective field goal percentage, they're 2-7. So they're really dependent on him to carry it up on a team that has Mike Conley, as a team that has Julius Randle, and a team that has Rudy Gobert. I mean, it's all on his shoulders offensively.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about the Wizards and Malcolm Brogdon being back on the floor. I think this is a team that could really benefit from trying to figure out a trade to get Brogdon, because Mike Conley's out right now. That's doing them no favors. They're kind of left without a point guard. I know they drafted a young rookie, Rob Dillingham, who was a one-and-done player at Kentucky. But if they could add another veteran like Brogdon to kind of counterbalance with Conley out there on the floor, I think that could work wonders for this group as they're still trying to get organized offensively with this new look with Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo in the mix. Now, next up, Bruce, we've got the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, granted, they're still second in the West at 12-4, but all 4 losses came within their last 10 games, and they aren't looking so hot without Chet Holmgren.
Well, yeah, they were 8-1 on the morning of November 10th behind a league-leading defense. And then 5 minutes into that night's game, Chet goes down hard, breaks his hip, hasn't played since. I kind of look at that as a missed game because he only played 5 minutes. So if we call that a missed game, the team's 4-3 without him heading into Monday's late game at SAC. In the 9 games with Chet, they gave up exactly 100 points a game. In the seven without him, they allow nearly 107 points a game. So that's 7 points more. And in the 3 losses, their total margin of defeat was 19 points or about 6 points a game. So you can really see when they're losing games by 6 and they're -7 without him, what an impact he has and doesn't have when he's not there.
Yeah, hashtag the Chet effect. World B, what's your thoughts on the Thunder? Is it time to panic without Chet, or will they figure things out?
I don't think it's time to panic, but there is some adjusting to do. I mean, you lose a guy like that, who we can all see looks like he has a world of talent and was a future All-Star really on that in the NBA on that team. So not panicking, but they definitely have some adjusting to do. Getting Isaiah Hartenstein back last week is a big help for them. They need rebounding help. He's already making that impact on that end of the floor. I would say let's see how they do the rest of the year because their schedule gets really difficult. They got 10 of the next 12 games on the road, and they have to go to places like Sacramento, Golden State, the Lakers, the Rockets, which we know are look like they're the real deal. They have the Magic out east. They have some really tough games coming up, and let's see how they do when they get with this lineup now. If they come out of this still around 500 after 12 games or below 500 after those 12 games, now we got to wonder where exactly they fit into the Western Conference.
Yep, and I think we'll give it until the new year to see kind of where they stand because as I see it now, I think they might take a little bit of a tumble without Chet. Now, before we hit the break, World B, I do have a World B hot or not special that I think you'd love to tell us more about, and that is the Nuggets with Joker on and off the court. Tell us more.
Oh, well, even back during their championship years, as great as they were, there was such a huge gap when Nikola Jokic was on the court when he was off the court in terms of their offense. It's been ridiculous this season, and we saw it while he was out the last few days for personal reasons, last week. On the court this season, they are scoring 126 points per 100 possessions. When he is off the court, never mind just when he's playing and he sits in the game, they're scoring 92 points per 100 possessions. That's an incredibly unbelievable gap. Being held below a point per possession when you have – I know they're losing guys, over the last couple of years. Aaron Gordon's hurt or whatever, but they still have Jamal Murray. Christian Brown looks like the real deal. They have guys on here who can carry the load, and they just – when he's off the court, it's unbelievable. That's why I continue to tout him every year as a prime MVP candidate along with his numbers. There's nobody – in terms of value, more valuable to their team than Joker.
Yeah, no question about that. But after the break here, we do have some hot players we'll discuss that may be in contention this year for an MVP right after this. And we're back here on 48 Minutes. Let's get into our hot or not players. And as I said, we'll start out with the guys that are hot. And no better person to start out with than our guy, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who still currently leads the NBA in points per game at 32.4. He is one of the more active players on both ends of the ball, been a huge part of their defensive improvements as well with the shot blocking ability. So, Bruce, what's your big takeaway from Giannis? Obviously, I don't think the Bucks would have many wins without him this year, but he sure seems to be like an MVP candidate this year.
Hey, look, they have the 4-game win streak. We talked about it. 32.5 points, almost 11 boards, more than 7 assists, 1.5 blocks. He carries a heavy burden at both ends of the floor, but that's why he's a future Hall of Famer. The Bucks are Giannis.
And World B for you, we're going to go to Charlotte and your guy LaMelo Ball. He has been having a ball out there on the court here recently. Had a 50-point performance on the road in Milwaukee. Of course, they fell a little bit short in that one. And as of tonight, it's another big game for LaMelo Ball. He's got 44 points here on Monday. So what's your takeaway from LaMelo's impact in Charlotte and his continuous improvement as far as his scoring efficiency?
Well, it's ridiculous. He leads the league in usage rate, which means, basically it means how much you have the ball and how much the offense flows around you. So he leads the league in that department at 36.7%. So he's got the ball in his hands a whole bunch. He's a chucker. There's just no way around it. He leads the league in 3-point attempts. at 12.5 per game, which will probably go up after Monday night. He and Brandon Miller are the future of this team, and you can see it on certain nights. You watch them over the weekend. They had a great game combined over the weekend, and the two of them 6'7". They're a tough combo to defend when they got it going. And LaMelo is leading the way, obviously, with the week he's been having.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, Bruce, going back to San Antonio here with Victor Wembanyama. Obviously, on our previous show just recently, we talked about Defensive Player of the Year candidates and whether or not Victor could get back into the conversation. Well, as of taping here on Monday night, he now leads the league in blocks per game, 3.6. Obviously, with their recent success, he's had a huge part to play in that. What's your takeaway from Victor? I mean, we were just criticizing him, and it seems like he's really kind of just done a 180 on us and started playing really good basketball.
Well, look, we're almost through the month of November now, and this month he's averaged more than 25 a game, 10 rebounds, nearly 4 block shots. He had 9 blocks against the Clippers, and he had 7 against the Jazz. So, yeah, I mean, those are numbers. Those are like Dikembe Mutombo type numbers when it comes to just like swatting people's stuff out of the air. Look, again, the Spurs will go as Wemby goes. He's improving all the time. The Spurs are improving all the time. It's very simple formula.
Very simple. Now, not as simple, but obviously it seems to be working its way well out in New York. Karl Anthony-Towns World B. I teased him at the top of the show, playing some absolutely stunning basketball here recently. What have you thought of his adjustment thus far? You've got to be pretty happy as a Knicks fan.
Oh, very happy. I mean, he's come aboard and he's obviously clearly the best player on the team already, which is saying something when you have a Jalen Brunson as great as he was last season. But you watch Karl Anthony-Towns play, he's another dimension of greatness in his game. He's lights out from outside. We used to mock him, on this podcast about bragging about being the greatest, tallest, best shooter, best 7-foot 3-point shooter in history. Well, he's shooting over 50% from 3-point range, so he's doing something right. He's got, last 6 games, he's got 5 20-10 games, and the one game he didn't against Utah over the weekend, he still had 16 points and 16 rebounds. But, they needed a little bit more because they really embarrassed themselves with the loss to the Jazz. But he is more than held up his end. Show me another free agent or acquisition, I should say, to come aboard to a new team this year that's been better than Karl Anthony-Towns.
I don't think we can find one. That's a great point there. Now, got to give some credit when credit is due here, Bruce, and that is with this year's NBA rookie class because everyone said, this is a real weak class. Obviously, the excitement of Wemby the year prior probably put a damper on things, but Jared McCain, we've had a lot of standouts in this rookie class so far. So what's your takeaway just from how much this rookie class has impressed you thus far? Because I feel like there have been some impactful players.
Well, last week we were pretty much unanimously going to say Jared McCain, Rookie of the Year. But guess what? In the last week, Dalton Connect Four's stock has gone up big time. He had 37 in a game the other night. And I think he had like 9 or 10 threes in that game. I forget. It was a 9. Yeah, so that was a huge number. And he's averaging double figures, and their team is, they're playing really good ball. He's just what they needed. So maybe his numbers aren't going to be what McCain's are, but he's having much more of an impact on winning than Jared McCain at this point.
Yeah, no question. Will B, anything to add on the rookie class?
Yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised. And the guy we mentioned earlier in the show, Alex Sarr for the Wizards, he came in with the hype of being a top pick, everything, and his shooting, his offensive game isn't quite there yet. It's getting better, but his defense has been really solid. He's 10 games already this season with 2 or more blocks. That's already tied for the 3rd most in the NBA this season. So he's having an impact on this team, at least at one end of the court. And you develop, you learn from guys, you get comfortable in this league. He's not gonna be Rookie of the Year. I think at this point we can rule that out. But I can see him getting much better. The way Wemby got better at the end of last season, I can see this guy developing very well at the end of the season and becoming a fixture on this Wizards team.
All right, transitioning on here to the ice cold players. Let's start out with Minnesota's Donte Divincenzo. Bruce?
It's cold in Minnesota, man. And it's really cold if you're Donte Divincenzo right now. He was supposed to be the spark plug off the bench for the Wolves, although some of us wondered, would his attitude accept coming off the bench from Minnesota? That said, he hasn't been good so far. He's averaging 6 points a game fewer than he did last year for the Knicks, okay? And he's only shooting like 35-point-something% from the floor. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the weather's about to get really cold up there. Hopefully he'll get an electric blanket or something.
He might need it. World B, any thoughts on your old friend, old pal, Donte?
Well, it's a surprise. I mean, nobody expected he coming off a career year from 3-point range last season, 40%. Minnesota gets him, and he was that other piece that everybody thought was going to be put the Timberwolves ahead of the Knicks in terms of who wins this trade, because you have Karl Anthony-Towns and Julius Randle. Okay, those two maybe cancel each other out, but it's Donte Divincenzo that was going to be the key piece in that trade, and he's just 33% on threes. They try to put him in the starting lineup. That didn't work, and Bruce is right. I mean, I mentioned this earlier in our preview thing. 5 teams in 4 seasons now. It's not all because he has a team-friendly contract. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what his deal is, but 5 teams in 4 seasons. There's a reason.
So far, that take has aged well. So well done there, World B. Next up, we'll talk about a star here. I mean, Tyrese Haliburton. His team is 8-10 on the season. I feel like a lot of his fair share of the struggles have led to a lot of these losses. Notwithstanding Monday night, as he got his act together, he had 34 points and drilled 9 3-pointers from downtown. So a really good shooting game, which we haven't seen many of those thus far, have we, World B?
No, he kind of just ruins everything we were going to talk about on here. It's just, it had this great night here. I will say this coming into, you could probably say he's been the most disappointing player in the NBA for a guy his stature this season. I mean, he comes into this game, into Monday's action, shooting 31%, less than 31%, really. I'm rounding up from 3-point range. That's unbelievable. He's never been that's not true. He was 40% on threes early in his career. So this is really surprising. The really big thing is I can't figure this one out. On the road this season, 22.7% on threes. How is that possible for a guy of his stature, an Olympian, by the way, to be that bad on his perimeter shot? It's unbelievable how far he has fallen this season so far. And I don't know of another player in this league that's been more disappointing for an all-star than Tyrese Haliburton.
Kawhi Leonard. Bruce, you're up on Tyrese Haliburton.
I was thinking the same exact thing.
On the court before.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Joel Embiid, whatever. Hey, look, he set the bar really high last year when he was an all-star. And then he was a member of the Olympic team. And, Steve Kerr shattered his spirit by never playing him. So I think, kind of knocked him off his little mojo a little bit heading into the season. I'm just sort of kidding about that because he did the same thing with Tatum and has had, Tatum's been fine.
Yeah, that really bothered him.
His scoring, Tyrese's scoring, assists, and rebounds are all down. His shooting percentage is down almost 10 percentage points. And now with Monday night's win, now they're 8-10. So they're creeping back towards 500. But yeah, I mean, I mean, World B pretty much said it all there.
Yeah, let's not give him too much credit on tonight's success. He did play the Pelicans, a team we just talked about. So, I mean, I'm glad they could beat the Pelicans at home in Indiana. So, take it with a grain of salt.
Wasn't on the road.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, home game for sure. All right, Bruce, let's get to our final thoughts.
One of the nice early season storylines is Scotty Pippen Jr. in Memphis. With Ja Morant and Desmond Bane both missing games at different times, the door was open for Scotty Jr. to emerge. He played college ball at Vanderbilt in Nashville, then moved southwest to Memphis, where he may have found a home with the Grizz. He's a 6'1" point guard. He's played all 17 games heading into Monday, averaging more than 12 a game with almost 6 assists in 26 minutes, all right? He's a good rebounder for his height, and he absolutely crushed it on Saturday at his old man's court in Chicago. Pippen Jr. scored 30 at the United Center on 13 of 16 shooting, had 10 dimes. The Grizz beat the Bulls 142 to 131. I'm just saying, great job by a young dude who was forced into action, and he has delivered.
He certainly has. He's definitely surpassed expectations from the jump. I mean, this was a guy that was on two-way deals and whatnot, and he's really earned his stripes in the NBA. So great to give him some love here on the 48 Minutes podcast. World B?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out. Bruce mentioned Chicago, but not the way that I'm going to. I'm going to give a shout out to Billy Donovan a little bit here. You know, the Bulls are probably where we thought they'd be. They entered Monday 7-11 on the season, but Billy, people don't realize this, or maybe people don't realize this. He's completely changed their style of play offensively, and in a major way. They were 28th in possessions per 48 minutes last season. Now they had DeMar DeRozan, so he was the mid-range guy. This season, they're leading the NBA in possessions per 48 minutes. We call it pace in the advanced statistics world. But to go from 28 to first is really a monumental shift in your style of play. Not to mention, last season, they were 29th in percentage of their shots that came from three-point range, about 36%. This season, it's almost 39%. They're sixth in the league in percentage of their field goal attempts that come from threes. So, like I said, it's not translated into wins. They're only 7-11, but they're really – Billy Donovan decided, all right, DeMar DeRozan's gone. I have these other guys here. What am I going to do? Let's change it up. The other way wasn't working. This way's not working either, but kudos for really making an effort to try and change things up.
No doubt about it. And on the trend of Chicago, that's exactly where I'm headed for the Thanksgiving holiday. So my final thought is wishing all of you a happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully all our listeners have a safe and fun holiday season. And just want to say thank you on behalf of the 48 Minutes podcast for our loyal listeners that listen to us and watch us every week. And with that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everyone.